Hello and welcome back. I'm Blake Shaw and this is Creative Conversations. This is a series that the Summer of the Arts is putting on where we get to interview some pretty influential artists and musicians in Iowa City. Today I have Nikki Lunden and she's going to tell us all about Nikki. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. I want to start in the beginning. When did you first get inspired to play music, or when did you know that music was going to be something important and big in your life?
Oh gosh. Well, that's kind of a two-part question almost, but because when I was little, my mom loved Karen Carpenter, and she sounded just like Karen, and she would. You know, when she's cleaning, when we're driving in the car. And so like, I knew like all of the Carpenter songs, like by the time before kindergarten, you know. I remember my first memory, is actually, I was around 3 or 4 years old and my parents got me an organ for Christmas and I sat down and I played the MASH theme. I remember that, like I'd never touched a thing before. And, yeah, so, that was kind of, probably an early sign. But really, the big thing that got me really motivated was and when I was 15, Sheryl Crow had just come out and she had Strong Enough was a huge hit of hers. And I didn't have enough, I loved the song and I didn't have enough money to buy the whole CD, so I bought the single. And I'm already a broke musician at 15. The fourth song on there is an acoustic version of Leaving Las Vegas, and I'd never heard the original. And it made the hairs. And I had to pull over. I'm driving my 1977 Lincoln Continental Town Car. It was a beast. We called it the Jolly Green Giant. And driving down a gravel road, and I had to pull over and start the song over again. And just the way that I felt when I listened to it, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make people feel the way that I did. And yeah, I became obsessed with Sheryl Crow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So your mom sang, what about your father? Were they both musicians or musical?
Well, my dad can't really carry a tune in a bucket, but he does play guitar, so a little bit.
Cool.
So right about the age of 9, I was sitting in my dad's kitchen and he had this little ditty that he used to play over and over and over. And I said, let me try that. And he gave me the guitar and I did it. And he's like, oh. So then he played like Clementine and he said, okay, do that. And so I did that. And then like Red River or something like that. And I did that. So he got me a little like half-size guitar. And I played around on that for quite a long time. And then I can't remember if I got another acoustic, but I do remember my dad had a 12-string, and once I was out of high school, I just kind of ran around with it, and I really started wailing on it at that time, and taught myself a bunch of Sheryl Crow songs and some little Melissa Etheridge, but I was really already writing a lot of my stuff. Or writing, I wouldn't say it was good, but like some of my earliest songs that I actually recorded and performed with bands was probably about the age of 18 was when my songwriting started to take off.
Cool. I want to talk more about that, but it sounds like you started on guitar. Well, after organ, guitar was your next one?
I wouldn't say that I played the organ. I think it was more of a by ear kind of thing. And it just kind of, my brain, it just must have made sense to me, the sound of the notes. But yeah, guitar really is what.
Wonderful.
I still play piano with one finger on the left hand and very clunkily.
Did you sing in school or play any band instruments in school?
I did. I started on alto sax in 5th grade, then I upgraded to tenor, which is what I originally wanted to play. They told me I was too little for a tenor at first because I'm still pretty small, but I was really small then. And then I even played Barry in high school, which was really fun. We had 2 Barrys in our school, and I could only play one of them because the neck piece, one of them had an angle that was a little too high up, and I couldn't do both at the same time.
That's awesome. Do you think that time influenced your music at all going forward, or was it like, okay, I've seen it, done it, now I'm going to do this here with guitar?
Well, I think Oh gosh, that's a good question. I really don't know. I really enjoyed marching band. I was also in show choir, so I think just being part of the performance, you know, and even like, you know, some of the, I mean, even as a, you know, a young teenager, like the music in bands, it was, not that my band was all that great, but like there were some of the pieces that really moved me. And I always find it interesting when there's music that doesn't even have lyrics, and it's just, it makes you do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Even just talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's why we do it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we do it. Yeah.
And for me, it was the team part of it too. Just, I think that's why I love music the most, is just being with so many people and creating beautiful sounds. So you played a little bit in middle school and in high school, it seems like. So tell us about after you graduated high school, how did your music evolve from there?
There was kind of a huge unexpected transition that happened, or just life change that happened right after I graduated high school. And I found myself living with my dad and my brother, which was really a stark change from my living situation, and didn't know that was coming. And my dad had this 12 string, and I really just kind of got, I really just kind of sunk my teeth into it, because I didn't really know where my place was at that time. A little bit of a you're on your own shock. And then, you know, I'm from the Southeast Iowa area, and the town that I grew up in, kind of two places, is Franklin, Iowa, that has less than 150 people live there. Yeah, teeny tiny. You can see the other end of town from one end to the other. And then Fort Madison. And Fort Madison, there was a blues jam on Sunday nights. So I started kind of hanging out there. I was writing my songs at my dad's house when I first started writing. Superficial Girl was one of my first songs. That was a big Trolley's hit. Everybody loves that song. And that's when my writing started. Some of the things that I had felt throughout my childhood, you know, my mom was always working. My dad was a truck driver, so we had a lot of babysitters, and I guess you could say I just felt alone, and all of those feelings started to come out, and that's when I really started doing my songwriting. And I took a semester of college at Southeast Community College in Burlington, and I just did the semester, and then I just kind of vagabonded for a while around Fort Madison, and just kept playing, teaching myself guitar. You know, and I'd learned by watching other people. You know, once I got the basics of the chords down, I kind of rode with that for a while, but as time went on, I got bored with that. So like I started, you know, really exploring the fretboard, and I couldn't tell you what any of the notes are, but I can sure play it nice and pretty.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's okay. I was going to ask you, you're kind of leading this way. Did you have any mentors that personally invested themselves in you, or were you just stuck on Sheryl Crow and Melissa Etheridge for you?
I think vocally really was Sheryl Crow. I really spent a lot of time in my car mimicking her, like some of those, like, you know, the bends and things that she does, and like hearing the little nuances in her voice, and I've adopted a lot of those things. And Bette Midler, believe it or not.
Oh, interesting.
The Divine Miss M, the one with the red hair on the front, I listened to that record a lot, and she just goes from such beautiful sounds and then just gets so raunchy, you know, and like, oh, I just love it. And she's got those bends and stuff like that too. And I remember Jim Musser did an article about me once back in the early 2000s, and he said elastic vocal stylings, and I credit that to Bette Midler, because she just, man, she's that's I don't know, I love it. It just makes me, you know. But yeah, I mean, I had some people. in Fort Madison that I was hanging around, and one guy, his name is Richie Noon, he's not with us anymore, but he saw something in me, and he was my age actually. He was a amazing guitar player. And he taught me how to string my guitar the way that it's supposed to be strung, and he showed me some things, and he really encouraged me. But I think the thing that really has been the biggest influence is when I would go down to the blues jams, and I'd go in there with my little white guitar and I'd play my little songs, and then they'd be like, no, you're not going to do that anymore. You have to play with us now. And so, you know, that force of, you know, the musicians that I were around just like made me get in there and like start playing with other people. And I had that same experience in Iowa City when I started going to the blues jams with my lifelong musical soulmate. We're not playing together right now, or, you know, life goes on, you know, and like, but we started hanging out at the blues jams when, you know, Ed English and John Stefaniak, some of those guys, Gary Gibson, and some of those guys, and they would kind of do the same thing. You know, I would go down with my bass, and because I love playing bass, and they would put me up with some, you know, just kind of average players, and then they'd make me stay, and then they'd put like the really, really good players up there, and so I'd have to sort that out, and that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Some of my like favorite musical experiences have been in bands where I'm not the best. You know, you learn so much from these people that are doing it. So it's wonderful that they're kind enough to let us in and do that kind of stuff.
I totally agree. Yeah.
And the blues jam. So I think we're talking about the Yacht Club. Blues Jam? Okay, can you talk about that? Because maybe some of the listeners aren't old enough like us to know how cool the Yacht Club was before it turned into the joystick and alley cats.
Yeah. So the Yacht Club kind of became the new green room in a way. When the green room closed, there was no more Sunday night blues jam. So I went to Scott Kading and talked to him about doing a Sunday night blues jam, which was poker night. So we had to do, or no, I'm sorry. It was Monday night blues jam at the green room, and they had $1 cover and 50-cent pints, man. It was great. It was always packed. So we ended, Monday night was poker night at the Yacht Club. So he gave us Sunday night. So everybody kind of moved to the Yacht Club, and it was a whole different atmosphere because it's like down in the basement, the kind of low ceilings, and I don't know, it was cool. Like when you could still smoke back then, and kind of like a smoky, you'd walk down the stairs and it's just like the smoke. And the stage was interesting. There's a big pole, a big brick pole that's kind of well, there's like the water pole that's on the stage, so there was like some kind of weird, awkward separation. But you know, we always made that work. And my role was I was the MC. It was my band at the time, Heinous Canis. We were the host band, and so I MC'd also, and I was the sound person there also, and you know, we had all different levels of musicians that would come in there, and I would kind of do the same thing with some of the folks that, like, I'd make them get up with some of the, you know, the better players to kind of force them to figure it out and get better. But I think the most unique thing about what my role was there was that I would record every week. I would record everybody's set. And then I go home and mix it. And every other week, I would give them a CD of their last 2 weeks of performance. And, you know, and I think, you know, just being so kind to people. I think that you have to allow people a lot of grace to be able to, you know, getting on stage when you know, like, I'm just starting out, getting on stage is really intimidating. And if you've got people that are, you know, not encouraging you to keep at it, it's easy in and out the door, you know. I couldn't imagine what would have happened if I didn't have people pushing me to keep going and get better. I also ran a lot of open mics too, so I've done that a lot too. And there's been some interesting cats that have showed up there, and I would let them play every time, you know, and just encourage them to keep coming back, you know. Because, I mean, if that's something that they love, do it. And if you want to come to my open mic and do it because you feel comfortable doing it here, by all means, please. Yeah.
All right. Let's back up just a little bit. So you've talked about how you became this person that people are comfortable playing in front of in Iowa City. When did you get to Iowa City first, though? How did you build up to that?
Oh gosh, well that's a long-winded story, but so I was in Fort Madison. And then some crazy stuff happened and I somehow ended up in Tulsa, Oklahoma for about 6 months. And then when I came back, my mom was living in Iowa City. So I moved in with my mom and I put an ad in the Icon. I don't know if you were here yet when we had the Icon. It was before the Little Village. And it was like a regular sized paper. I put an ad in there about singer-songwriter looking to join or start a rock blues band. And I got a call from a guy in Cedar Rapids, and I joined this band called Rocket Science. It was the top 40 cover band, and they had a few originals. But and that's how I met Natalie, my violinist, and we met in 2000, and we kind of gravitated towards wanting to do our own thing. So we eventually left that band. I wasn't in the band for very long, maybe 6 months or something like that. And we left the band and started our own band because we wanted to do original music. And so that was in 2000. And then at the Blues Jams, this little scruffy drummer, Seth Koenig, we call him Puma, was down there. He was at University of Iowa, and a guy named Rory Lewis was his roommate and played bass. And so we met those guys there, and the Trolleys were born, my very first actual band, original band. And so we we moved into the trolley house. So we have a trolley house. So we have the band house, which was really cool, over on Van Buren. Yeah. And Kirkwood and Van Buren. And so a lot of music was written and born in that house. It was wild. I loved it. We all did. It was great. It was just always buzzing. There was always music being played and people over, and that was an experience that, I don't know, it was a really special time. And the Trolleys were short-lived. We were only together for less than 2 years, I think. But we really had a lot of time. We were a huge band in town at the time. We played a lot at the Green Room, the Mill. Oh, man, both those places. My heart. Ooh, whoops. Sorry about the mic. Yeah, and then, Cedar Rapids, we played over in Muscatine a little bit. But we were playing couple nights a week at least. Cool. And we would play, a 45-minute or so up to, we were a headliner also. So, maybe an hour and a half show. But then we also played the 4-hour gigs at the 9 to 1ers that were grueling. But it's like you get really tight when you're doing that. And, that muscle memory and just your whole body gets accustomed to, or just gets fine-tuned in being, on stage. And, I just played a show last week, and I'm not playing that often anymore. And oh my gosh, I was sore from playing guitar for just 2 hours.
It's crazy how fast those chops can go. It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
By the time you were in the Trolleys, lyrically, how were you feeling? Were you feeling established and you found your voice, or were you still experimenting with that sort of thing?
I think by that time I had really, I kind of became like a rock star, so like the little rock star of Iowa City, and I was writing a lot of fun songs. I hadn't really figured out, like some of the stuff that I first started writing was not really no. So I had all this kind of fun poppy stuff that we did, and then like some of the, as like relationships started to come into my life, I've experienced a lot of, I'm a person that wears my heart on my sleeve. And man, when my heart would get broken, oh man, the songwriting would just like, phew. I could be just heartbroken. I could be scathing a little bit in my writing, kind of rub it in your face a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I just had a lot of angst also. And as time progressed, like I started drinking alcoholically when I was about 18, 19, right after I graduated high school. And so by the time I got into my early 20s, I was already starting to emotionally feel the effects of that. So on top of like having these relationships that were a bit heartbreaking, you know, I was starting to feel the effects emotionally of just, you know, what I was doing to myself. And like I have a song called Where Do I Begin that's talking about, I get up in the morning, I look in the mirror, I'm staring at a stranger, how the hell did she get in here? You know, and like trying to, you know, like I'm in the grips of an addiction and not even really aware of that, you know. I never really heard of AA or, you know, people getting, you know, I'm not a person that's gonna get, I don't have a problem, you know. And so there was a lot of self-reflection stuff, and not in a positive way. But at the same time, it helped me express myself. Like, I'm not always the best talker. You wouldn't get that from our interview right now, but I have a really hard time expressing my feelings out loud with words, like in conversation. But on paper, I'm a really good writer, and I think I'm a really good lyricist, and being able to get across those deeper emotions that I'm really feeling. Yeah, I mean, I think some of that stuff is some of my really good writing. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that because, you know, a lot of us have that angsty feeling, or we feel lonely, or we feel scared, or it's just kind of that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can we take a moment to celebrate you? Because I heard that you're sober now.
I am. I've been. I'm 6 years sober, a little over 6 years sober. I celebrated 6 years last November.
Would you like to talk about that transition? How it affected your writing, or maybe it didn't at all? Or?
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh, it so did. So as I was just saying about like the angsty stuff, there was all that, you know, and the heartbroken stuff, you know. There was like one person that I had this, like what I call the imaginary relationship, that I had like a very short relationship back in my early 20s, which is where some of the scathing stuff started coming in. But this imaginary relationship went on for 17 years. And it only took a few simple words to be like, oh, okay. You could have said that a long time ago, but to save me a lot of grief. But I guess you could say, I mean, as time goes on, you know, the addiction with alcohol and, you know, other things came into play, and got to some pretty dark places. And so my writing got pretty dark. And then, well, I guess we could back up a little bit, because I moved out to Los Angeles in 2012. In kind of a state of panic and running, and my mom had just passed away from stage 4 small cell lung cancer, and then 2 weeks later I moved out to LA. And I went out, I was going to Musicians Institute, and I got an independent artist certificate there, and got picked up by a band that was the Laura G band, which morphed into Lunden Rain. And there were a lot of substances going on there. People can do their substances, but an addict does not do substances well. You know, so there was a real problem started to develop there as well, that just kind of escalated quickly. And I wasn't doing a lot of songwriting then, because now I'm in a world of like super professional musicians and producers and things like that. And So I came from being like, you know, the big fish in the little pond to the little girl from Iowa, you know, who ironically I'm the powerhouse vocalist of this alternative rock band, but I also don't really have a voice. So I felt quite stifled. But I did learn a lot about songwriting. And there, for our second project, we put out 2 records, and I had one song that I wrote on the first record called "It's About Time," which was actually about leaving Iowa, and it's a great song. But I had a couple of songs on, or a few songs on the second record, "Confessions," and you know, by being involved in the process, you know, and kind of learning some of the nuances of writing, I leveled up in like just understanding of songwriting a bit better. And so when I eventually came back to Iowa City 6 years later, I had all of this experience from LA, but I also came back because I recognized that although I had stopped using substances about a year or so before I came home, I was still very sick. You know, all of those, you know, there's a lot of guilt and shame and all these like nasty feelings that, you know, as the years go by, the weight of that just keeps getting heavier and heavier, and not dealing with any of that stuff. You know, that's just like being dry, as we say, dry. And it wasn't until I got back to Iowa City that I started really getting sober. And man, learning how to be a sober musician is something. I have a song called "Waltz in Fine Definition," and it's about you know, trying to figure out how to write. Because now I don't, you know, I've gone through the process of the, you know, some of the steps. I'm in a program of a 12-step recovery program, and there's steps that we do, and where you get to just let go a lot of that guilt and shame and stuff, and so you don't have to carry that around anymore. And it's incredible, like the weight that you feel lifted from that. And it opened up a whole new world for me that I was completely unfamiliar with. And so understanding how to do that sober, you know, the chorus, the line is, "I've given up on my pain, no broken heart to torture me and drive me insane. And I'm crying over my dried up dreams because now I don't know what defines me." I keep singing the same old songs. I try to write every new thought that comes along, but they all sound like the same hook and melody, like a broken CD player stuck on repeat. And I mean, that's like exactly how I felt. And so, you know, writing love songs that weren't about being tortured about it, or longing for someone that I couldn't have, or you know, that kind of thing. Shortly after I moved back to Iowa City and I started getting sober, and I met my wife. And for the first time in my life, I had a relationship that wasn't under the influence. And it's amazing. And I was actually able to write about that. And I've got a few songs that I've written about my wife and our relationship. And it's just wild because, like, you know, I wasn't able to write that way really before. And I've also gotten a little bit political. And I think, and like getting back to playing guitar, I didn't mention that when I was in the alternative rock band in LA, they took away my guitar and gave me a wireless microphone and leather pants. Yeah, so there's 2 different Nickies going on there. And so when I came back, you know, I had to fall back in love with music again, because my experience there, I came home pretty bitter. There were just the way that the the business was happening and the situation that I was in just seemed really upside down and backwards to me, and I got really discouraged. And you know, I came back home, like I wanted to put the band back together, and realizing, you know, this is 6 years later, you know, everything is different. And so getting back to my acoustic guitar, you know, I started playing some of my old songs, but, you know, I wanted to write, and I started writing new stuff and I just started coming up with new chord structures, and that really drove me to start writing differently as well. In 2020, yay, so many things happened that year, and during the pandemic, I had the experience of, I wrote a song called This American Dream, and with the band not practicing or anything like that, I did the whole orchestration or arrangement, produced this song with MIDI, and it was really a great experience, because that was like the first time that I really got to just sink my teeth back in to the process of writing and recording. I love recording. I absolutely love recording and editing. I also got a sound engineering degree before I skipped out of LA. So, so that was really wonderful. And having all of that time at school kind of got me out of the element of what was going on over here. And I started to feel myself again, because I really got away from who I was. And trying to be part of that, you know, everything in my closet turned black, you know, and my eyeliner got thicker. Actually, I didn't even know how to wear eyeliner until I moved to LA, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so my songwriting has definitely changed. I think just seeing life in a different light, and not focusing necessarily on myself anymore. Finding new things to write about. And I'd never written anything really politically before, I don't think. And I have 2 songs now. One's called This American Dream, and the other one's called Hypocrisy, which is funny because Hypocrisy was actually being written. And in the process, American Dream was born out of that song. So
cool.
Yeah, so, and then eventually Hypocrisy came back. So that's like one of our newer songs in the band. But I do want to, you know, while I was in LA, I just want to kind of throw out some things that I did get to do out there, despite the fact that I was really discouraged and came back home, just kind of scratching my head and disheartened about the whole thing. And I did have to fall in love with making music again. But just to list a few things that I got to do. So I went on tour in 2013 to the UK and Scotland, and that was amazing. I probably will never get to leave the country again, so unless if I'm fleeing, which could happen soon. So we got to record at Abbey Road while we were there. We played the Fringe Art Festival, and there's the Tron Kirk cathedral there, and we got to play inside there, and it was just really amazing, in Scotland, in Edinburgh. And it was incredible to be playing in such a different element. I couldn't really understand what anybody was saying there, even though they were speaking English. Like, the thing I could understand was brah. So it was really fun. And so yeah, we got to record at Abbey Road. We got to go to Paris for a day. And then I've recorded 2 records while I was out there. Both records, we did some of the recording at Capitol Records. So in Studio A and Studio B. So the big room where you see like the big orchestral stuff and like Frank Sinatra and all that. That was the big room that we were in. And in Abbey Road, you know, if you see, there's very, very little footage of us there, but that's, you know, you recognize the staircase from the, you know, all the Beatles stuff, and it was real surreal. 2015, we were on the first round of ballots for the Grammys, so I got to go to the Grammys that year. And that was when Adele opened the show. And that was it was nuts. We were in the nosebleeds, but we still got to go. And I think probably, my biggest greatest experience was playing Long Beach Pride in 2015, and we opened for Salt and Peppa, and walking out to a sea of about 15,000 people. Oof. And I'd never experienced anything like that. You know, I played probably the Whiskey A Go Go was probably one of the biggest shows that we played to a packed house there, and you know. But getting in front of that 15,000 people, I didn't know what was going to happen if that ever happened, you know, and that's the ultimate dream, right? Was to get to that, you know, that's the climax of the whole thing, and like to be able to stay there, that's where I wanted to be. Man, it was like I had arrived. I came out on that stage popping out with my wireless microphone and was just ready to go. And it was an incredible, incredible show. And I'm really glad that I got to do that while I was there, and I got to at least have that gratification of that feeling.
How do you feel Iowa City got you ready for that type of thing?
Oh gosh, well, I think because I played so much. I mean, so I had the Trolleys, and the Trolleys broke up. I played solo for a while. Then there was the Nikki Lunden Trio. And then Heinous Canis, there was Nikki Lunden Band, there was Nikki Lunden and the Paper Hearts, which was all kind of a lot of times the same, like me and my drummer, like we've always played together.
It's nice to have those guys that follow you around.
Yeah, and then playing a lot of solo stuff, and now Natural Habits is the current band, but I was playing so much between with the band and with solo, you know, I was playing anywhere, you know, 3-4 nights a week.
That's awesome.
And just, you know, it's just doing it. So I think just having all that experience of just performing and, you know, kind of just, I don't know, if I had a pickup truck and a dog, you know, I would have I could have done that whole thing. I was too scared though, man. Being an alcoholic and an addict, I think, you know, that kept me from doing a lot of things, you know. I felt safe in my bubble, and I think there was a lot of anxiety wrapped around that, and, you know, getting too far away and like afraid that I'm not going to make it back here, you know, something kind of like that.
So you did make it back here to Iowa City, and so let's go to after LA. So you came back to Iowa City. How did you get back into the scene? Like, because you were busy for a little bit after that, right?
Yeah. So I got back in August of 2018. Started putting the band back together, went through a couple of lead player changes, trying to just kind of sort things out. And just as we were starting to build a little bit of momentum, COVID happened. And so everything just shut down. And I had met my wife prior to, well, I met my wife our first date was December 29, 2018. So we just celebrated 6 years together also. And so, you know, that happening, along with, you know, the band getting the momentum and then everything shutting down, really stifled everything. Obviously, it stifled the whole world. And so by the time that was over, you know, a lot of things have progressed in my life. You know, my sobriety, I got deep into my sobriety. I still am. I put myself in the middle of that, because if I don't have that, I have nothing. Just became a huge part of that community. You know, I had a full-time job. I worked for, I don't know if you remember Technographics that used to be downtown.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where I always got all my flyers printed. And well, they changed names and they moved over kind of across from Waterfront Hy-Vee. And I got a job there as the print shop manager there. And I was there for a couple of years. And then I moved to Systems Unlimited. So I work now with adults with special needs, and like I've found my second calling there. And so I've been doing that, and you know, getting back to playing music has been a real struggle. You know, being sober is one big factor, because, you know, do I you know, do I want to be out, you know, getting on stage at 11 o'clock at night where people are just starting to get kind of drunk and, you know, it's just, it kind of feels like a dangerous situation. As solid as I feel like I am in my sobriety, that, you know, if I'm there and nobody's paying attention and that, you know, you could get into that like, well, you know, one drink isn't going to hurt. But I know that, you know, if that happens, you know, it's over.
Absolutely.
So it's been hard figuring out where to play. And now I'm going to school also. So I will be leaving my second calling in a few years to become an electroneuroddiagnostics technician, which will hopefully eventually lead to buying a house that I can full circle here, that I can have my band practice in the house and we can have a studio and you know, if we're not too old by the time that happens.
That'll never happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you reminisce on your favorite gig that you've had in Iowa City?
Oh goodness. So I don't know if you were here for the Q Bar.
I've heard stories about the Q Bar.
The upstairs of the Q Bar was my favorite room in town to play. The sound engineer there, Randy, I think it was Murphy. You know, he's an old cat. He had been around for a long time, and he really listened to the music and like would know, like, I don't know, he'd just throw delays and stuff in there, and it's just like my experience of being on stage really morphed with that, and that's when like I started having more ideas about my effect system that I use as far as like delays and doubler and vocal harmonizer I have now.
Cool.
And but we had a show at the Trolleys there. It was packed, and there may or may not have been a plan for a group of people to be illuminated in a very special way. And it got to a point at the kind of the peak of the show that the room was just like breathing, and like the energy in the room was just incredible. And I think that you know, just feeling one with the audience at that time, and was really interesting. And I actually wasn't illuminated. I don't think I could have handled that. But you know, just being that connected, you know, it felt like a room full of aspen trees. You know,
beautiful,
breathing all at once, and you know. Oh God, it was really amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You kind of already just answered this, but I was going to ask you if you wanted to do a special shout out to a favorite sound person, because you know, as musicians, we spend a lot of time rehearsing our music and getting everything the way we want it to sound. But then when we step on someone's stage and they're miking us, you know, we put their trust in their hands. Who in Iowa City, who would you like to shout out as that person that's really helped you?
Well, I could say two people.
You could do multiple. Go ahead.
So currently, when we do play out, Crystal over at
Sherman.
Yes, Crystal Sherman. She's the sound goddess.
Queen.
She is so cool, and she knows how to listen. She knows how to ask. She's just amazing to work with. I've never seen her not like going nuts the entire time for a show, which is great, because there used to be shows that you would play where, you know, it's set it and forget it. You know, something's going wrong and the sound guy's outside smoking cigarettes, you know. So yeah, she's amazing. And actually our Natural Habits put out a live record. Trolley's just put out a live record from the same show, and this will actually segue. And Crystal recorded that for us, and she had everything set up, and like she thought about it. We worked it out before we went down there, and to set up and everything. And she was just so cool. And that show was Trevor Fest for Trevor Hopkins. And he, he was the sound guy at the green room when I first showed up, and he was one of those people that just pushed and pushed and pushed me, and he taught me how to run sound. And And yeah, he's just one of those incredible people. Also, that is just, wants to see you get better and just pushes. And he was so amazing. I remember when I had come back from LA, and or actually, I think it was even after COVID. When the wine bar and Korean barbecue opened up, and Trevor was doing the sound there when we were trying to like create a mini mill, and he was running sound there, and that's part of the show. I see him like hiding over behind a pole, and he's got tears coming down, and I was like, "What's going on, bro?" And he's like, "I just love your music so much, And it's like to have that connection with a person, and God, that guy will go. Sometimes I still see him walking down the street with that Trevor strut, and his little hat. And yeah, he's always going to be alive in this town. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful, beautiful tribute to him. Thank you for mentioning him. Can you tell me? There's a lot of festivals that go on in Iowa City. Could you tell us your favorite one that you love to attend as a audience member now?
Oh gosh, probably Arts Fest. I think there's just so much music going on, different kinds of music. I love Jazz Fest, don't get me wrong. Jazz Fest is awesome. But just the variety of music that you get at Arts Fest, you kind of get a little bit of everything. And,
absolutely.
And it's, just starting musicians in the little small tents, and then up to the big stage, the big main stage, and I've got to play that stage, which is pretty cool. Alex Body, who's running big sound guy in town now, he's also awesome to work with. So yeah, I love getting on a big stage. Yeah, I love getting on a big stage. It just sounds so odd, feels so great.
It's fun to play loud. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So yeah, and I've seen a lot of my friends play that festival, and so it just feels like it really feels like a tribute to the Iowa City music scene, and we have a lot of incredible art here too. But it's so community oriented for me. I see all kinds of people that I know down there, and yeah, that's probably my favorite. I have to say, yeah.
Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah.
Thank you for all that insight. I learned a lot about you, and that's wonderful, and about Iowa City. So that concludes our creative conversation for Summer of the Arts. This is Nikki Lunden Trotter, and I'm Blake Shaw.
Thanks, Blake.